What happened when Columbus returned to Spain? The untold story. The triumphant stranger. On March 15, 1493, a battered ship limped into the harbor of Palos de la Frontera. The crew aboard the Niña looked weathered and sun-hardened. Their bearded captain stood on deck, his eyes reflecting the Atlantic's endless gray. Christopher Columbus had returned. But Spain was not the same as he had left it 7 months before, and his return would trigger a storm of ambition, betrayal, greed, and secrets the world was never meant to know. This is not just the story of a sailor hailed as a hero. This is the untold story of what happened next. The arrival of a living myth. Columbus stepped ashore not as a mere Genoese navigator, but as a man who claimed to have found a direct path to the fabled riches of the East. He brought with him 7 Taino captives, some gold trinkets, vivid parrots, a few spices, and tales so wild they walked the line between madness and prophecy. At the royal court in Barcelona, Ferdinand and Isabella received him with theatrical splendor. They were draped in jewels, the Inquisition still smoldering behind them, and their eyes glittered with a singular thought: empire. Columbus bowed low before them. He laid before them golden masks, strange fruits, feathered ornaments, and stories of islands beyond reckoning, of a paradise untouched by time. The court erupted in wonder. For a brief moment, Columbus was a demigod, but even then, under the layers of praise, the seeds of political intrigue were already sprouting. The silent captives. Among the Taino brought back from Hispaniola was a boy named Guaracuya, later baptized as Diego. He was 10 years old, sharp-eyed, and completely silent. While the Spanish nobles paraded the Indians like pets, Guaracuya watched and remembered. What the court didn't know was that he was a chief's son, a future resistance leader. What he saw, Spain's weapons, its cities, its greed, would fuel a rebellion decades later, a final stand against the Spanish conquistadors in the Caribbean. Columbus thought he brought submission. He had actually brought a spark. The whispering shadows. In the months following his return, Columbus was celebrated, but he was also watched. Other explorers, Andalusians, Portuguese spies, even Genoese rivals, began to question the legitimacy of his claims. One whispered, he found no route to Asia, only rocks and savages. Another said, if there were riches, why so little gold? Behind closed doors, the crown began to investigate. Was this a miracle or a costly mistake? Then came the first blow. Queen Isabella learned of the enslavement of natives. She was furious. The church condemned the act. To her, these were potential Christian souls, not commodities. Columbus was summoned and made to explain himself. He stammered through a defense that the captives were willing, that slavery would civilize them, that gold would flow in abundance soon. The queen relented, but only just. A warning had been issued. Spain loves its heroes, but devours them when the tide turns. The deal behind closed doors. Few know of the secret Treaty of Barcelona, where Columbus negotiated terms for a second voyage. Behind the grandeur, he was under pressure: deliver gold, slaves, or spices, or lose everything. The deal was simple: 17 ships, more than 1,200 men, including soldiers, priests, and convicts. Royal backing, but conditional. In exchange, Columbus would bring back riches and convert souls. Failure meant exile. What Columbus didn't know was that his enemies had embedded agents on his second voyage. Spain was not placing its bets blindly anymore. The letters they tried to suppress. While preparing for his next voyage, Columbus wrote a series of private letters to his brother Bartholomew, some of which were only rediscovered in a Vatican archive in the 20th century. In them, Columbus speaks of islands guarded by serpents of smoke, men who vanish into forests without sound, skies that weep black rain, gold rivers hidden behind teeth of stone. Were these metaphorical, or did he witness something his sponsors found troubling? A marginal note believed to be in the hand of a royal clerk reads, "This man sees too much. May his compass turn false." The return to the unknown. In September 1493, Columbus set sail again. This time it was no longer an expedition, it was a colonial invasion. But back in Spain, something else was brewing. The Catholic monarchs had formed a new Council of the Indies to control exploration. A mapmaker named Juan de la Cosa had begun redrawing the world, without naming Columbus as the discoverer. Rumors spread that a new expedition, led by Amerigo Vespucci, would soon challenge Columbus's claims. The very empire Columbus helped create was already erasing him from the story. Legacy and oblivion. When Columbus returned again in 1496, the reception was cold. He came back empty-handed, with a population decimated by disease and rebellion, and no cities of gold to show for it. The court turned. Nobles who once toasted his name whispered of failure. He was stripped of much of his authority. Later voyages ended in disgrace. Columbus was arrested, imprisoned, and returned to Spain in chains. By the time of his death in 1506, he was largely forgotten, overshadowed by newer names and fresher lies. And yet, centuries later, his legacy was resurrected, not by fact but by national myth. Statues were built, streets renamed. Children taught his name as a symbol of discovery. But what really happened when Columbus returned to Spain? A hero was celebrated. A prophet was doubted. A legacy was manipulated, weaponized, and ultimately stolen. The missing pages. In 1541, a monk in Seville discovered a set of journals, believed to be Columbus's final reflections. Most were burned by order of the Inquisition. But one page survived. It read, "I found a world of gods and wonders, but I brought back men who saw only gold." The voyage did not change me. It revealed what we have always been. The untold story is not about the voyage itself. It's about what happens when ambition touches the divine and returns home carrying fire.